That's gonna work great. Welcome to my very first Q&A video. I'm going to do a 3-part video series, question and answers. This is gonna be part 1. Part 1 is going to be FAQs, frequently asked questions. I've taken the top 10 most frequently asked questions that I received in DM, email, Instagram comments, or YouTube comments, all of the things, and I've kind of worded them in a more generic way so that I can answer them all. So this is the top 10 most asked questions. It's episode 1. Episode 2 will be personal questions. 5 personal questions that I've received in the same places, DM, comment section, YouTube comments, whatever, emails. Personal questions that I think will kind of just be a way for you to get to know me in something that's not fitness related. I do have a life outside of fitness, believe it or not. So that'll be really fun to kind of dive a little bit deeper, get a little bit more intimate. And so that'll be episode 2. Episode 3 will be just 5 random questions that I think are really either funny or have a funny story for an answer, or just 5 questions that I think will be fun to answer. So without further ado, I've got a cup of coffee and I'm going to be extremely careful not to spill it on this white couch. And we're going to dive into the top 10 most frequently asked questions that I get. Okay, question number 1. Why are you missing the pec / what is Poland syndrome? I've been asked this question. I can't even begin to guess a number of times I've been asked this question. But I get it. Something's different. People have to ask. So I am missing the right side of my pec muscle, the lower part, because I have something called Poland syndrome, Poland's abnormality. It is basically a birth defect, and they have virtually no idea, no concrete idea at least, of what causes it. A really common theory, and one that seems to make the most sense to me, is that when a baby is positioned in the womb, maybe it curls up too much to one side, or there's not enough blood flow to one side of the body, and then that develops that results in an underdevelopment of part of the muscle. But it is not an accident. It's not something terrible that happened to me. It's just, I was just born lucky. Question number 2. How did you build your physique / how long did it take? Okay. This is a loaded question. So I started weight training when I was 16. So about a little over 10 years. I started doing it when I was 16 in the weight room in high school. I was pulled out of PE because I was on the wrestling team, and I was put into weightlifting class. And that was where I started building strength and building the basics. I was doing the squat, I was doing the bench press, I was doing the power clean, and clean to press. And there was no like auxiliary training. There was no like isolation training. It was all like compound movements, just build your strength, build your strength, build your strength. And that was when I was 16. And that kind of slowly evolved into, oh, I see that I'm getting stronger. I want to join. We had clubs. There was the 500 pound club, the 1,000 pound club, the 1,500 pound club, the 2,000 pound club. And it was a combination of your squat, your deadlift, and your power clean, and your bench press. And if your totals added up to 500, you were in the 500 pound club, and so on. So I wanted to get to the 2,000 pound club, and that became my goal, was to get as strong as possible. I started working with, I actually was injured wrestling. I started working with Travis Mash, with Mash Elite Performance. I was one of his first young athletes, and now he trains basically exclusively young athletes, which is really cool. So shout out to Travis Mash. I love you, I miss you. We'll hopefully chat soon. So I started working with Travis, and he he was just fantastic. He knew exactly what I wanted to do, and he knew how to do it. So I was working with like chains and bands and like the board on your chest, you know, and we got my bench press up to like 330 pounds when I was in high school, which was really cool. My squat was at like 405. Deadlift got up, not in high school, but in college, I got my deadlift up at 505. So I was really strength based. I focused on getting as strong as possible. And then around the time, I would say college. I started to kind of appreciate more I guess freshman year or senior year of high school. Sorry, I started to, you know, want to get just like a bodybuilder big. And that was where the strength training kind of transitioned into a more physique looks oriented kind of training, which was really fun. And I really enjoyed that. That was when I started looking at like Arnold Schwarzenegger and like watching the old Pumping Iron videos. And all through college, 4 years, I was training 5 or 6 days a week. I was eating as much as humanly possible. And I was lifting really heavy weights and extreme volume. My training sessions were like 2.5 hours a day. My friend Evan, who never had to lift a weight ever, and he would just look amazing. He just had freakish genetics. He used to hate coming to the gym with me because he knew it was going to be like a 3-hour commitment to get there and get back. I was made fun of for how much I worked out and how much time I spent there. But I loved it. I really loved it. And so the answer is, how did I build my physique? I built the groundwork was strength training, and then I added on kind of like hypertrophy training and training to get quote unquote ripped. How long did it take? I've been lifting for about 10 years. So that is the answer in a nutshell. Question number 3. Is training missing a pec different than training normally? I get this question a lot. Does my missing pec affect my training? And I get a similar question. What's it like being colorblind? The answer is, I don't know. I truly don't know, because I don't know what it's like to not be missing a pec. So the best way that I can answer that question is to say, like if you look at my online training programs, the programs that I've made on myself, and I sell them to people that are not missing pecs. I sell them to people that are missing the pec and that aren't. So the answer really is no, it's not very different. Your body, whether you're missing a pec or missing a leg, your body will adapt to that, and your body will figure out a way to train around it and work around it and function around it. So like my right trap, my right deltoid, my right tricep, my right upper pec, my right lat, my right everything through the back has figured out a way to compensate and to make everything move very, very normally. I don't feel like any difference on any side. There's no fatiguing or anything that happens. And that goes back to what I was saying on the last question. I started strength training. So I built my strength up very, very evenly. What I will say is, if you are really struggling, I still say train evenly, train evenly, train evenly. Train both sides at the same pace, because what's going to happen is, if you're training, you're doing the bench press, and say you are missing the pec muscle. If you're loading up, if you're using dumbbells, say you have a 100-pound here and a 50-pound here, if you're doing that, this side is going to keep getting stronger and bigger, and this side's never going to catch up. Whereas if you have a 50 and a 50, this side may not be working as hard as this side, but they're going to catch up. They're going to progress evenly. This side might plateau, but you're going to let the other side even out. And this goes for people that are missing pecs. This goes for people that are that have like imbalances in their physique, whether you have a smaller right arm or a smaller left arm or a smaller leg or something like that. If you train and try to and keep things even, it's more about the mind muscle connection than it is about extra rep. It's just like finding that kind of mind muscle connection in the side that you believe to be weaker or smaller. Now you can also, like, if you really want to like do some extra work, some unilateral work where you're only doing like hammer curls on one side to kind of thicken up the brachialis or something like that, that's fine. But don't train unevenly. Don't train one side with lighter weight than the other. Just do some extra sets just on the one side. That's the best I can answer that question. Oh, this question makes me so mad. It doesn't make me mad. It just shows how little people know. The question of, are you natural? I've never used steroids in my life. I've never used any sort of performance enhancing drug. So the short answer is yes, but let me tell you why. Number one, I am afraid of putting things in my body. My grandfather was a doctor, and I have just grown up constantly afraid of taking certain medicines or taking too much ibuprofen or drinking too much caffeine or things like that. Caffeine I've kind of gotten used to. I drink like 2 or 3 cups of coffee a day. But there was no part of my brain. There was no part of, no matter how big I wanted to get or how much, how ripped I wanted to get, there was no part of me that could wrap my head around injecting myself. I'm also afraid of needles, FYI. That could wrap my head around injecting myself with some sort of hormone or steroid substance. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Now, I'm not one of these people that says if you're taking steroids, you're a cheater, blah, blah, blah. Like, I get it. If you're competing at that level of bodybuilder where no one is natural and you want to progress and you want to be the very best, sure, that's fine. But if you're like me and you're not competing and you just really want to be the biggest guy on Instagram or the biggest guy in the gym, like, come on, save your money, eat some more food, you'll get big. But and even that, yeah, I say that, even it's like a personal preference, man. I could personally never do steroids because number one, I'm afraid that they would screw me up somehow. And number two, I've just never had the desire to, like, I've never wanted to be big bad enough to warrant doing steroids. And if you look at my photos, if you look back at my photos, like go back on Instagram, you can see when I was really big. When I first started Instagram, I was really big and I was really lean, and I was eating about 8 meals a day. I was training 5 to 6 days a week. And I've seen this argument. I've seen people say this about me. Like, you look at Gunnar 2 years ago, he was huge. And you look at him now and he's like not that big. The difference is 2 years ago, or however long ago, when I first started Instagram, I was training 5 or 6 days a week and I was eating literally 8 meals a day, 6 to 8 meals a day. And slowly I kind of started tapering down. When I sat down with my acting coach after one of my first ever classes years ago now, one of the first things he said to me was, "You need to lose some weight." And I was like, no, I worked really hard to put this on. And then I was auditioning for things like cop or bouncer or, things that warrant being really big. And I was getting pigeonholed into that box. So that was where I started to say, okay, you need to come down a little bit. So whereas I was training 5 to 6 days a week for like literally 2 hours a day and eating, 3,000 plus calories a day on a very strict, like, bodybuilding regimented diet. Now I'm working out 4 days a week for about 45 minutes each session. I'm eating 3 meals a day, maybe 2,500 calories, and I'm not necessarily tracking it. I'm doing intermittent fasting, and I'm just not trying to be as big anymore. It was too much work. It was too hard. So that's where you see the difference between me being, 220 pounds versus where I am now at 170. It's not that I stopped using steroids. It's that I changed what I was doing. I changed my eating pattern. I changed my training habits. So the short answer is yes, I am natural. No, I've never taken steroids, and I never will. So that's that.